The people in the colleges, students, and definitely the professors, they have this neo-Marxist type of indoctrination going on because they're very open. What they selling to the young people is just this utopia, this idea that everything is going to be fine if you just hand out the power to a single person. I went through the college system here in the United States, and it's just obvious that that's what.
So that was just a little bit the intro, and here you see these students on the college campus protesting, saying that, stop the genocide in Cuba, free Cuba, let Cuba become a democratic, entity, a democratic country. Let us have our life, our liberty, our pursuit of happiness. And now we're going to get to the point where the reporter is going to start asking students on the American campuses, what do they think is happening in Cuba? And do you think it's happening because of socialism and communism? Let's hear their answers right now.
Campus reform. We're here in Washington, D.C. today. Cuba is revolting against their communist government. Cubans have had enough. But do students know that that's why they're revolting? Have they heard what the media has been trying to convince them of? We're going to find that out. Stay tuned. In Cuba right now, we're seeing the people of Cuba revolt, the first of its kind that we've seen in several decades. Do you know what Cubans are protesting?
I actually have not kept up with the Cuba crisis right now.
No.
I do not know. Do you?
Something about communism.
I actually don't know. Baby.
Isn't it like they're just unhappy with their government, basically, right?
Yeah, it's issues with food and water resources and just general mistreatment by their government.
Not a ton about it. I know they're protesting for rights, something like that. Yeah,
Something like that.
I'm honestly unsure of what's really going on.
They're protesting oppressive government. They don't have access to basic necessities like food, water, money, things like that. How do you think Cuba got to that point?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know.
I don't know either.
I don't know. I would say probably related to the government not providing.
The restrictions and all that the government's putting on Cuba just keeps getting tighter and tighter, and the people keep getting poor.
Yeah, I wonder why that is. Why do you think the restrictions of the government? Because it's a democracy, right? It's a republic. So all those freedoms, they got freedom of speech down there. They got freedom of assembly. They got freedom of religion, right? They got a Second Amendment. They got all these rights, don't they? Didn't their founding fathers give them rights down there in Cuba? I mean, right? The government is just cracking down on those Bill of Rights there in Cuba, aren't they?
Poorer and poorer and poorer.
Do you think it could have something to do with the fact that Cuba, for several decades now, has been a communist dictatorship?
That's definitely to blame in that situation.
I mean, the U.S. has kind of, had their eyes set on Cuba. I feel like more.
It's the United States' fault. It's not communism. It's the democracy. It's the republic for which it stands, one nation under God. It's the United States. That's the problem for Cuba. That's why the Cubans. That's why the Cuban people are revolting down there. All right, it's because of the United States of America.
U.S. interest in the area is kind of dictating the well-being of the people, less the communist aspect.
Yeah, I know that at least with communism, the ideal communism and
ideal. We're gonna go back to that one. Yeah, the ideal communism. The one that killed 100 million people in 100 years. That ideal communism. The one that's in communist China right now. The one that's in Russia. Where they have the bread lines and the soup lines. That communism, that ideal communism. Let's just go back here and see what this young lady, wants to say in terms of that again.
Yeah, I know that at least with communism, the ideal communism and the way it's supposed to be isn't necessarily the way it is.
Yeah, because eventually people realize that, I'm not saying that America's perfect, but I think a democratic process is more fair.
Probably, yes.
Probably a bunch of things. That probably has something to do with it.
Oh, definitely, probably.
Oh, definitely? Probably. sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. Wait a minute here. I'm tearing up. I gotta press a button. Oh.
I don't know a lot about it, but I'm sure everything is contributing to it. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Do you think that socialism or communism could take hold of America, or do you think it's incompatible with what America stands for?
Oh, I could only hope.
No, I think I'd be open to it.
The kid with the orange hair. I'm surprised that kid doesn't get insulted. I thought everything orange is bad. You know, orange man bad. Let's go back to here. What he can only hope. Let's hear him again. He can only hope. Oh, let's just go back here. And these guys are funny too.
Could take hold of America, or do you think it's incompatible with what America stands for?
Oh, I could only hope.
No, I think I'd be open to it.
Oh, geez, that's a deep question.
Question. Kind of an AOC fan.
So a shift towards something more along the lines of communism is something you would prefer?
I mean, yeah, I'm not like super read up as I wish. A communist, a classless, moneyless society has not yet been achieved.
Can you name a country that's implemented communism and it worked out for them?
I mean, implemented is pretty...
Implemented is a pretty tough word. It's a pretty tough definition. Implemented. You know, it'll be done eventually one of these days out in the future. But like right now, that communism that they talk about, that just wasn't implemented correctly. It was just like some bad people. They just didn't know exactly how to do it. But we find the right people to run communism and socialism, then it'll be fine. Instead of killing 100 million people in 10 years, maybe it'll only kill 90 million people in 9 years. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, tried to implement and then, you know.
Usually seems to be how it goes down.
I would say China's kind of thriving right now.
You think China's doing good?
Yeah.
But what about China's citizens? They don't really have the same rights that we do.
I mean, I don't want to get into the whole Uyghur thing there, but...
Oh, sure. I don't want to get into the whole Uyghur thing there. You know, what do we care about, you know, some Muslims, you know, some Muslims out there, Chinese Muslims, you know, in concentration camps, being raped and killed and murdered each and every single day, like almost 2.5 to 3.2 million are in concentration camps, re-education camps. You know, communism. Yeah, we'll like it here in the United States and around the world. It'll be great.
But I would say in general, yes, they do.
I don't think it's something that will ever take over just because there's a lot of greed in the U.S. The ideal communism and
Again, this idiot. I mean, this woke, social justice, warrior, chickadee, Nazi, feminazi, you know, virtue signaling babe. Do we have to mansplain it to you? Because it's greedy in America. So communism will never be here. What the hell are you going to school for, honey? That's what I'd like to know. What the hell are you going to school for? You're not going to be greedy about getting a job for yourself? You're not going to be greedy about getting stuff for your family? Maybe not. Who knows? Maybe, you know, her parents are supporting her and she doesn't know what kind of money been spent on her education, lived a privileged life, so she can say the stupid things that she says, have those opinions to herself that are absolutely, you know, completely baseless. I mean, it is amazing, folks. It just rolls off the tip of their tongue. Ideal communism hasn't been here yet. Ideal.
the way it's supposed to be isn't necessarily the way it is.
Now, folks, listen to this.
What we're seeing in America among young people is this shift where they're looking at communism favorably, they're looking at socialism favorably, and they're kind of turning their back on America, saying that, you know, this country isn't all that great.
To all those people, all I want to tell them, fly to Cuba, stay there. If you want to feel what communism, socialism, what is it? Because it's too easy to say it here. You think it's easy, you think everything's free, you think it's good, but it's really not. I'm from Cuba. I came when I was 12. And I know the difference between Cuba and United States. I love it here.
What's your message to these college students?
Listen to us, guys. Communism sounds beautiful in theory, but it can never be taken to practice. Understand that. Communism kills. They take everything. They tell you what to think, what to feel. They even control what music you listen to. Right now in Cuba, after 62 years of communism, kids are getting shot in the streets just for chanting freedom. The problem is not the lack of food or the lack of medicine, it's the lack of freedom. If we have freedom, we will have food and medicine. You can bet on that. Since the 60s, the people in the colleges, students and definitely the professors, they have this neo-Marxist type of indoctrination going on. I went through the college system here in the United States, and it's just obvious that that's what's happening.
The American school system and the American democracy allows every student to learn of every system. But in Cuba, you can only learn of one system. It's only one type of knowledge, and that is communism. That is wrong. They have to learn about capitalism. They have to learn about democracy. The idea of capitalism is greater than communism, and I say it to all of the students.